Each year, thousands of people seek to live in America and other countries, whether it be from persecution or simply to make a better life for themselves. These thousands of people face terrible conditions in overcrowded boats where people smugglers don't care if they live or die. Even in Australia, asylum seekers have attempted to reach its shores by boat from Indonesia, often paying large sums of money to people smugglers. Hundreds have died making the dangerous journey, many of them children, and many of these boats are turned back as soon as they reach Australian waters. In many cases, the reason people do not support the welcoming of refugees and immigrants into their countries usually revolves around nationalist ideologies or resisting the change of their country. Regardless of whether they have papers or not, there is an inherent bias towards immigrants, especially those of a Muslim background. With current events and terror attacks that occur all over the world, so many drastic measures have been taken in order to prevent more of them happening, without consideration of the majority of Muslim people that are innocent and are only leaving their home countries in fear for themselves. An example of this bias towards immigrants, especially those of a Muslim background, is shown in Trump's Muslim ban in 2017. The order prevents citizens from 7 countries, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, from entering the US for the next 90 days. The order also bars refugees from any country for the next 120 days and bans Syrian refugees from US entry indefinitely. It states that deteriorating conditions in certain countries due to war, strife, disaster, and civil unrest increase the likelihood that terrorists will use any means possible to enter the United States. Facing criticism, Trump stated, "To be clear, this is not a Muslim ban. This is not about religion. This is about terror and keeping our countries safe." Even so, this assumption is based upon religion and nationality without a consideration that some of the refugees might be trying to escape from exactly what Trump is trying to keep out of America. Even in 2015 at a rally, comments he had made regarding Muslim refugees stated that they could be ISIS, I don't know. This could be one of the great tactical ploys of all time, a 200,000-man army maybe. This generalization of Muslim people, especially of Syrians, places them in a bracket where their stories, their needs, and their fears are not heard, and were essentially turned away when trying to escape their homes. This narrative being placed upon their lives is preventing them from accessing a safe, happy life, imposing a collective blame. But how can we impose a narrative of someone that we don't know is life without having an understanding of where they came from and what circumstances caused the desperation they had to have to flee all they know for an unknown place? The influence of media and social media, with racism and ignorance playing such a huge role in the cultural divide that prevents people from having more compassion for these people and not immediately assuming they are terrorists. But especially in America, targeting these groups of people just further encourages this way of thinking, as even when Trump defended himself by stating that the ban was about keeping terror out, isn't that just further making an assumption that all terrorism comes from Muslim countries? Through this, there is also an apparent lack of understanding of alternate points of view. To see these points of view, we must really listen to the stories of refugees and attempt to empathise with their struggles, even though many of us cannot even envision what they must have gone through, only to continue to be in a state of fear of judgment and assumptions based upon their race and religion. One story comes from a mother named Sharifa Daw. Her family was in danger of persecution from the Burmese government, so they had to flee to Thailand. They had little food, no proper home, and her children were not allowed to go to school. After 2 years of background checks, her and her family were allowed into the United States as refugees. She states in her story that she will never forget the feeling. "I was overjoyed. I felt like I finally had a place in this world." Even though her life seems like an American success story with all her kids going to college, the anti-Muslim hate that was still surrounding these people was suffocating. Even after her son got engaged, she said that they were afraid that her neighbours would see our visibly Muslim friends coming over for the wedding and think it was some kind of ISIS meeting. She talks of how our new president's hateful speech has helped create a more hateful country. But refugees are not dangerous or lazy. We are normal people who are unable to live in our own countries. We didn't want to leave our home, but we came here and came to love America. This is the American story and we're a part of it. I hope Americans under President Trump will see us for who we are. Such a powerful story really gave people an insight into what many refugees want, to feel a sense of belonging and acceptance into a community without people making judgments on them before they are even listened to. You cannot hope to understand what someone has been through before you see them as a person, as an equal. These assumptions people come to about refugees are dangerously influenced by the government, especially in America. So without making connections and friendships, the divide will widen and make way for more fear. Listening to the stories of refugees can create these connections, direct or not, and humanise a dehumanising situation.